Welcome to the Mind Myself podcast. I'm Esther, and it is my pleasure to be bringing you information about healthcare approaches, health issues, and people's health journey stories, all from the complementary, holistic, and integrative perspectives, helping you become your own best health advocate and helping you make your own informed choices because you matter. Welcome to Conversations with E. I'm Esther, and this is the Mind Myself podcast, and we are so excited to have Dr. Neelima Deshpande with us today. Thank you for being here, Neelima.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, so privileged and honored that you're with us. So today we're going to be talking about a conversation that I think many women have been embarrassed about, have been ashamed to talk about it, have not wanted to or known where to go to talk about this. And we're going to talk about painful sex. So can you start us off by sharing some of the stories that you have encountered with women experiencing painful sex?
Oh, sure. I get asked this all the time. One of the recent conversations I had this young couple sitting in front of me, and they had this look of like on their faces because I just said something that completely shattered them. And what I said was, so you're here now and you want a baby and you haven't had sex. You haven't had intercourse since you first got together because it's been too uncomfortable. What if I said to you that you don't need to have intercourse to have a baby? And you're like, what? So no, you don't. You only need one sperm, one egg to form a baby. Human reproduction is intensely wasteful. Every drop of semen contains a million sperms, and you only need a splash of semen. And one of those sperms is going to find its way to an egg, provided you're fertile. And they were like, so why do human beings have sex anyway then? Why engage with something that's so painful? Human beings are the only species on the planet that, well, apart from a few chimpanzees, that have sex to have fun and to negotiate, maybe an espionage, maybe to barter, maybe to make a bit of money with, to bond, to make up, to break up, to experience a gamut of emotions, to build energy with, to release energy. So human beings are capable of experiencing amazing highs if they can experience great sex. I have recently, women with menopause come to me all the time saying, oh, sex is so painful. I had a friend who's a gynaecologist who recently was in a new relationship. It feels like I've got little pieces of glass sticking in me. It's so painful. What can I do? It's like so hard. And I know it's causing it. Imagine what's happening to all those women out there who don't know what to do. It's okay. So she went on and got some estrogen and lubricants, and it became better. And she's like really happy now because she's having great sex. Some other kinds of cases are women who are going through fertility treatments. They're on this kind of thing. We gotta have sex, but they have fibroids or they have endometriosis. And one of the key markers of endometriosis is painful sex. Infertility, painful periods, and painful sex. That's a triad of diagnosis for endometriosis. Fibroids in the wrong place, ovarian cysts, masses inside the pelvis, pelvic inflammatory disease, sexually transmitted infections can all contribute to having painful sex. So why people have painful sex? There's a huge number of reasons. People come to me with any of these, and my job as a gynecologist is to figure out which one of these they fit in.
Wow. And so it's not just women who have painful sex, but it's men as well. So
yes.
Can you share a little bit about that?
Men can experience painful sex when there's not enough lubrication, or if the foreskin is very tight, it doesn't retract easily. Some men find that when the foreskin is really tight and it doesn't retract properly, they can ejaculate too quickly, or it stops them getting a proper erection because it hampers the arousal. Because one of the key things that stops you getting aroused is pain. or the expectation of pain will stop you getting aroused. And when you don't get aroused, it also stops you feeling desire and also stop your orgasms. So men experience the same problem as well. Many kinds of different problems happening in the penis, like fibrosis, something called Peyronie's disease. Obviously, sexually transmitted infections like gonorrhea, etc., can be very painful. If they have conditions like prostatitis, infections of the glands, they become very painful. Ejaculation becomes painful. Orgasms become painful. If sexually transmitted infections track up towards the testis and the epididymis, they can get something called epididymoorchitis, and that's really uncomfortable and painful, and sex then becomes painful, even for men.
So complicated. There's so much to learn. And so you were talking about painful sex in men, and it's just so complicated in both men and women, and there's so many possible contributing factors. So what can somebody do about it? You mentioned some estrogen creams, but what can somebody do if they're having painful sex?
One of the commonest reasons I have a couple, that couples come to me is their anticipation of having pain the first time they have sex. And in India, particularly in conservative societies like India, it's very common that probably men, the man and the woman don't actually engage in any kind of foreplay or sex until their kind of marital night, the first night of the honeymoon. And this whole culture around not engaging in premarital sex or not exposing yourself is very kind of difficult, because here you have this boy and girl who've been told, oh, be careful, dress up properly, cover up, don't do this, don't talk to boys, don't talk about sex, don't tell what's happening with your body. And then you get together on the first night and you're expected to undress and suddenly become intimate and allow somebody to push their organ inside your body, and it doesn't work. That fear and that anticipation of pain creates a lot of spasm, difficulties, tightening of the pelvic floor, and it stops sex from happening, and sex can become painful that way. And then the pain complicates the pain, anxiety, tension cycle, and just makes it a lot worse. So the relationship that leads into the conversation that sex is. So and we're not talking about one-night stands or prostitutes. We're talking about women or couples in committed relationships where they want to build the relationship by having great sex. So sex is the next step in a conversation. It's really difficult to have good sex or pain-free sex with somebody who can't even talk. And I get couples again and again and again where they're not able to talk to each other. They cannot have a difficult conversation. Arguments and stuff hasn't been resolved, and they cannot engage in pain-free sex because there is no arousal, there's no lubrication, there's no desire to engage with the other person because they don't even feel like talking to this person, and sex becomes unpleasant. And it's either physically painful or emotionally painful. We know, you and I know, that the body and the mind are connected. So pain in one area is going to very quickly translate into pain into the other area.
Right. So, and I'm imagining you've just explained about a young couple. This can happen both in youth and it can occur in aging. So maybe you want to
through relationships. So being aware of the fact that your relationship needs working on throughout your life. There's going to be ups and downs, and that's how you future-proof your pleasure, your sexual engagement, is understanding that situations, ups and downs that happen in your life need to be worked on. Each individual needs to do their healing so that when they show up for sex, for intimacy, for engagement with their partner, it's not interfering with that moment. So again, understanding how to be present in that sexual interaction, understanding that you're willing to adapt and change. So today, if I've had a difficult day, I've had co-workers arguing and I've been put down and I'm feeling on edge, that I take the time to restore my balance and to myself come back and say, well, right now my body's not lubricating very well, I'm not getting so aroused, so I'm okay to use lubricant as much as I need. And then engage with your partner. So being present, being able to share that with your partner and say, I need a bit more loving today, I've been hurt because of so-and-so that happened, can you do this for me? If you don't have the vocabulary of sex established, you're not comfortable talking about sex with your partner, you're not comfortable sharing your deepest, most vulnerable side and asking for what you need, then you're going to stay bereft of this. And when you don't get this interaction with your most intimate partner, then you remain unfulfilled. And then gradually that sex becomes more and more uncomfortable and then painful because you just don't get aroused enough.
So
a lot of arousal is about letting go of expectations, letting go of past hurts. A lot of it is about being present in the body.
right. And so if somebody watching this today is listening and saying, I've never talked to my partner about this, and I've been too, whatever, embarrassed or ashamed or whatever it is, how would you recommend that somebody start, especially a woman? Let's say it's a woman who has never talked to her partner about this and is experiencing some discomfort, and she wants to start but has no idea where to begin. What would you say?
It's important to get your vocabulary. So again, reading is the best way, and there's different ways. You can read, or you can have books on Audible, or you can watch videos, educational videos, or you can get that stuff from stuff like Wikipedia. There's a portal called a sexuality portal on Wikipedia. You can sign up and say I'm over 18, and it'll teach you. There's hardback books, so there's books called the Sex Book by Susie Godson, a variety of educational material available out there. Once you get your vocabulary right and you get comfortable, is to then experiment on your own body. So a lot of women shy away from the concept of masturbation. Now, masturbation is not just about, oh, I can have pleasure on my own. It's actually understanding and recognizing in your body what works for you and what doesn't work for you. It's becoming comfortable. It's learning to appreciate how your body responds and come to terms with how it changes through your lifetime. Your body's going to change as when you first go through puberty. It's going to change in your reproductive years. It's going to change through pregnancy, post-delivery. It's going to change if you need some kind of surgical process, or you've gone through some illness or disorder or difficulty. And it's going to change as you go through menopause. So being in tune with your body, being appreciative of the way your body responds to different cues, whether erogenous or not, different erogenous parts of your body, that is your empowering process. And then in your sexual interaction with your partner, being curious and asking them, look, this is what I've been doing recently. I've been really curious about how my body works, and I've gone on this journey to educate myself. Is that something that you've been interested in as well, or would you be interested in doing that with me? And for most couples, you'll be surprised that the partner will often say, oh, yes, even I've been doing that, but I just didn't feel you'd be okay with it. So asking a question that empowers the other person to bear, their doubts and fears and not being triggered by them. So the only way you don't get triggered by somebody else's doubts, fears, anxieties is being confident in yourself. So you don't want to go to your partner and say, oh my God, I really don't know what's happening to me. Would you like to find out more? Should we go to a doctor? Where should we go? Where should we go? Don't do that, because it just frightens the other person. So coming from a place of confidence, of self-reassurance, and just being calm and comfortable in your body with the vocabulary and with how you experience your body allows the other person also to be vulnerable and be open to learning. Then you can learn together. And there's tons of resources out there. Tons of books that are written for couples to do experiment. Esther Perel's got an amazing game that couples can use. They've got little prompts, cards that you can play. You can buy that off her website, and it just gives you little prompts to explore each other's, deepest thoughts, feelings, being vulnerable. Because sex is the next step in conversation, in being able to talk about things. So when your vocabulary expands to include your vulnerability around sex and the stuff that happens with sex, then your relationship becomes better, deeper, and much more rewarding. So that's how I would begin, and not being afraid to try out things. So you don't need permission from your partner to explore yourself. It's your body. You don't need permission from your doctor to be able to talk about sex. And if you come across a physician or a doctor who doesn't welcome your questions, just find another one. Things, even in the medical profession, we are not taught sexual medicine. It isn't part of the curriculum, which means someone like me has to actively go and hunt it down, practice speaking about sex like this, and get really, really comfortable to not get triggered. And we've talked about this previously, maybe in a story sometime, about how I ended up becoming a sex therapist. But the trigger for most of us to want to learn about sex is a negative experience, and that's the springboard. So if you're going through a negative experience, don't knock it. That could be the springboard for you learning a lot more about your body, about learning the vocabulary, and then expanding your ability to engage with these kind of conversations.
Well, you said something that shocked me, that sexual health is not part of the medical curriculum. That's astonishing.
Sexual health is, but talking about sex is not.
Okay.
So I go to a genitourinary medicine clinic and learn all about sexually transmitted infections and never, ever have to bare my soul about how I get aroused, what desires I have, what I find attractive in a man or woman. If I have a conversation with a sexual partner, how do I negotiate what I like or don't like? What are the erogenous parts of my body? How do I share? How do I tell my doctor, oh, I've got a problem with my clitoris. How do I clean down there? It's burning and stinging and itching. I'll tell you an example from my own life. And this may trigger somebody. I was working in obstetrics and gynecology, and I had a male registrar, who once told me, he says, oh, I think I was having pain during my periods or something. Obviously, I'm transparent, showed on my face. Oh, I think you need to be examined by a male gynecologist. And I've been molested and accosted and had these kind of advances. I didn't know it was not called sexual harassment in those days. But this has stopped me from getting help from good gynecologists I knew for painful periods until I had my spinal surgery, until I could no longer bear the pain. So it's really important. Doctors don't know that women don't come to you unless the pain quotient exceeds the embarrassment quotient 10 times over. It's the sheer embarrassment of having to go and share with your gynecologist that you can't bear it anymore. You won't subject yourself to an examination. Most women who turn up for smears, they come in with huge amounts of anxiety, huge amounts of tension of having to expose themselves to somebody and have a smear done. Eventually, you might become immune to it, but it takes a lot of work for somebody to show up and get a procedure done, have a marina fitted, which eventually I did. I only did that with one of my consultants, who was a lady who I knew was super gentle. I'd observed her like hundreds of times fitting devices for women. That's the only time I could open myself up to go and get that pain relief I needed. So doctors don't get this education in them. And I'm part of the change, because next week I'm going to be talking about this and how to examine a female. And this is what I will talk about to doctors in training.
Oh, I'm so grateful that you're doing that. This is such an important issue. And what I hear you saying is you're encouraging women, get checked out sooner by somebody you trust. And if the person that you go to is not trustworthy, then find somebody else. Because this is so, so important, especially if you're experiencing pain and you don't want to live with that pain, nor should you have to live with that pain. There are solutions. And so I hear you say sooner than later.
It may not be that they're not trustworthy. It may just be that they haven't learned the vocabulary. They're not comfortable speaking about it. They may be very trustworthy in everything. They might be really great surgeons. They might be good physicians. They might be really good doctors. But sex is something that they're just not comfortable with because they haven't had the opportunity or exposure to it. That's all it is.
Absolutely. And are you also a sex therapist in addition to being an MD? Yes. Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about your journey to that. To becoming a sex therapist.
My mother is also a gynecologist, and she was really, really keen on doing a PhD in human sexuality in her time, which is like 50 years ago, in the 60s. And I was like, wow, how did she do that? So throughout medical school, I was really, really curious. And I bought my first book, my master's in Johnson, soon after my third MBBS. I was busy reading it, but I hadn't had a sexual relationship then. I didn't know what it was. I was just reading stuff. It was just another textbook. And I soon got bored because there was no feeling. When I had my first relationship and that went to pot, and then I had my second relationship and I got told that, oh, you don't even masturbate, you don't orgasm, you know nothing about your body. And I got put down for that. I experienced a lot of humiliation and angst and, a lot of loss of self-esteem and self-worth because of that relationship. So, well, this is like come up too often. I need to crack this. And in a typical way, I'm somebody who likes studying. So if I find I come up against an obstacle, I just put myself into it and study it. I'm going to floor this, crack it once and for all. Nobody's going to ever tell me, you don't know what you're talking about. So I just dove straight in, and I went and got qualified, and I studied about relationships and sex and sexual therapy and cognitive behavioral therapy, and I did EMDR and EFT and neurolinguistic programming, and I went and sorted out my limiting beliefs about sex and partners. I used the LEFCO method to shatter all that stuff, and I did a whole lot of meditations, and I cracked it. And I said, okay, so now, well, this started in 2005, so I've been a sex therapist since then.
Wow.
I use all of this because that's part of my toolbox. Not all sex therapists will have this toolbox, but I do.
Yes, you're amazing. You're like, what do they call it? A unicorn. You're a unicorn amongst women and amongst doctors. I'm so incredibly grateful to have you as part of our community, Dr. Neelima. It's just fantastic to have you here. So we're wrapping up again. There's so much to talk about here. If somebody's experiencing painful sex, what is something that you want to leave them with today to encourage them to take a step in some kind of action?
Like I said, 3 important key steps. Number 1, again, start understanding the vocabulary of sex. Get yourself educated so that you can actually have a conversation. Learn to have that conversation with yourself and with whoever you're with your partner, with your doctor, so you get the help you need. Number 3 is, if you've had experienced painful sex, and you know it's acute, you've had good sex before and now it's become painful, don't leave it. Go get assessed, get examined, get sorted out, get a sexually transmitted infection screen. If you need an ultrasound, rule out endometriosis, fibroids, whatever it is, go get that help you need. Explain to the doctor, I didn't used to have painful sex, it's become painful sex, please investigate. If you're somebody who hasn't had sex before and you're anticipating pain, you've got a lot of anxiety around it, and it's not going away, or you've been married, you've been with somebody for 6 months or longer, and you've done all the self-help and it's not working, don't leave it longer. Go get help. 6 months is good enough. It doesn't change. So 6 months, or it's starting to affect your relationship, starting to argue a lot more, you're not actually, you're not meeting each other on the same page. Don't let the painful sex get to your relationship. Go and see a specialist, a counselor. If you need to go and have the conversation with 2 or 3 people so you find the right one for you, do that, because you will find the right person. There are many organizations, the World Association for Sexual Health, the International Association for Sexual Medicine, the European Association for Sexual Medicine. There's lots and lots of institutes, and they will have a directory of sexual medicine practitioners on their website. So it's worth going and checking out that directory, finding somebody in your area, locality that you can have a conversation with, get examined and assessed, and then sort it out. There is no aspect of sexuality, sexual health that doesn't have some sort of solution in it to improve your conversation with your partner, improve intimacy, because your sexual well-being is your right as a human being. It's one of the human rights. World Health Organization says that you're entitled to have an amazing sex life because it's important for your physical, mental, social, spiritual well-being. And that's what the World Association for Sexual Health also. You go to their charter, there's a patient charter, your rights, your sexual rights. So having good sex, pain-free sex, enlightened sex that makes you feel good about your body, empowers you, makes you feel amazing, it's your birthright. It's up to you. You own it. Ask for it.
And that's the perfect way to end. Thank you so much, Dr. Neelima, for being here today and being a part of this conversation. And I hope so many women and men too come and work with you because you have so much to offer this world. Thank you. Thank you for being with us at the Mind Myself podcast today. We know that time is precious and you've spent some of your valuable time with us. We're grateful. If you would like to reach out to our guest directly, the information is below. And if you would like more from Mind Myself, that information is also below. Please visit our website and check out all the information about the different complementary, holistic, and integrative healthcare approaches, information about health issues, more podcasts, tons of blogs, and we even have a community page for you where you could reach out and tell your story safely, or you could ask questions and perhaps somebody else in the world is going through something similar to you. In any case, we're so glad you're with us, and we're doing this because you matter.